Hi, my name is Andrew Crandall, and welcome to another episode of Journey Through a Lonely Planet. Now, today's episode, I'm going to talk about the song that actually opens up this sequence. It's called Space. Now, Space is been in my repertoire for quite a few years, and it's gone through quite a few different renditions and arrangements and such. I originally wrote it probably 1996. 97. It's back when I still had that 4-track recorder. And at the time, I became friends with this guy that was really, really into the Beatles. Now, prior to that, I was not a fan of the Beatles, honestly. I heard their music and as a kid, and it just never really connected with me. But when I started hanging out with him, I started like listening. He started playing me some of the songs, and I started like connecting, like listening to their arrangements, listening to, Rubber Soul and Abbey Road and all these different albums, and like holy cow, these are really well arranged because I know that they had a very limited amount of tracks, and I was really impressed with that. So, anyways, I wrote the song. I don't remember what the inspiration was. I just remember writing kind of more of a fun song for me. Because at the time I was kind of writing a lot more darker tone music, more depressing. I had a song called Melancholy, stuff like that. And so Space kind of like was something that I kind of experimented with. I just wanted to have fun with. And so, and even like the lyric, I just had a lot of fun with the lyrics. The chorus goes, "Hey, Mr. Spaceman, how is life on Mars? You forgot your warp drive tennis shoes." And I thought that was really funny, just kind of ironic. And the song is basically about a guy who just lost touch with reality, who's kind of obsessed with I don't know, just different things like Star Trek or space things. And so I kind of went with that. And so you fast forward to 2001 when I was putting together the Lonely Planet album for myself. I decided to put that on there. But the problem is I didn't have the original recordings of it. I just remembered the chorus. And so I had to basically rewrite the song. And so when I was putting it together, this is one of the songs that my friend John Babbitts actually did not play on. He had played on probably 80% of the original rendition. But this one he didn't he didn't play on it. And I couldn't remember if we just didn't have time or just like didn't like the beat or just whatever. We couldn't do the beat. I couldn't remember. But anyways, so I ended up like using this Zoom 323, drum machine for it. And this time also, like a friend of mine had listened to the first version of the album, and I actually originally had a lot of the songs were more ballady, and he's like, he liked a lot of the rock stuff that I did, but I had a lot of these acoustic ballads, and he's like, no, I think your rock stuff is more solid. I think you should do more rock songs. And so I basically decided to do this one more of a punk rock, where I just kind of gave a kind of more of a punky, almost Green Day rhythm. And so, and I changed the lyrics. And I really didn't like the lyrics as much. I felt they kind of threw them together, but I just, I at the time I just wanted to get the idea down, and plus also one part about my history as a songwriter at the time. When I first started out, my friend that got me into this had really strongly encouraged me to not spend time on the arrangements of music, but just to get the song idea down, because his meaning or his the reason why I said that was because eventually a song producer would take your song and then basically do what he wanted to do to finish the song. Now, that was back in the 90s, and now we're in the almost 2020. So things have changed so drastically. So now, when I'm looking at this music, I basically now I have to be the producer. And I have to think about how do I want to arrange this and how do I want to put this together. And then also it's forced me to be more meticulous and more almost perfectionist with my music. But before I would basically just kind of throw things together, and if it sounded okay at the time, I would be happy with it and then move on. But then later on, I'd listen to it years later, I'd be embarrassed of what I produced. So I just, I had to be more thorough about what I was doing. Okay, so with the guitars, I ended up doing is, because I really didn't have a big amp, Didn't know how to really mic and amp properly. So I ended up buying a Genesis 101 from Digitech, which was a copy or a clone of the Line 6 floor pod at the time. And it had all the different amp modeling and different cabinets and effects that you can add. So I basically plugged my guitar from that, or from the guitar into that, and then into the 8-track, and that's how I got my guitar tones. But when you fast forward to now, I've actually learned how to properly, or at least somewhat properly, mic my guitars using microphones, and I actually ended up using a lot of the tones for this particular song from the actual mic or from the amp itself. Not, I didn't use a lot of pedals on this one. So, and it was another interesting thing is that for me as a musician, it was changed is that I actually finally learned how to be a lead guitarist. Now, before with the rendition in 2001, I kind of knew like a little bit of soloing. I knew like the E minor pentatonic scale, the box scale from the 12th fret, and I knew a little bit of the notes outside of that, but I really was not a great guitar player or solo lead player at the time. And it wasn't until like about 5 years ago that I actually spent time in learning guitar. So I was actually learned the pentatonic scales, and then I took lessons from this guy named Todd Duane, and he gave me a chart of the diatonic scales, and I started practicing them to a click, and eventually started recognizing how the diatonics would overlap the pentatonics, and how I could basically once I knew where one scale was, I could find the rest of the scales, and I was like, whoa, it's changed my guitar playing completely. So with this particular new album, I actually wrote all the guitar solos, and because the other time I would just kind of whip something up that kind of sounded okay, and I was be happy with it at the time, but now looking back, I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. The other thing is that as an engineer or with engineering myself, is that I didn't really know how to comp. And so I was trying to get the best take. So every single guitar solo on this particular record is one single take. I didn't do several takes and take the best bits of it, like a lot of people are doing today. This basically the best take I've stopped was the only take that I had. And so I kind of liked that, because it was like, again, like this album is trying to go back to the vibe of the 70s, and they didn't have comping in the 70s. And so I felt, partially because they didn't know how to do it, but also partially as an artistic choice, that I felt that it was better that way to feel like it's from the 70s. Okay, so the original arrangement for Space was kind of simple. It was a C power chord with an F, and it was just go back and forth. Then finally, it would end on G. So it was fun. It was a fun rendition. But when I was recording or writing this new version, because I actually changed the lyrics, I changed the chord progression slightly. I wanted to do something that was more tribute to David Bowie, for like a Space Oddity and stuff. And so I changed the arrangement, and I slowed it down, because I think the original one was like 115 or 110 beats per minute. I can't remember. And I slowed it down to I think it was 90. But now I've got just the chord progression of C to this F ninth, I think. It's much more mellow. And I kind of liked that better. It just felt it was a much better vibe for the lyrics. It's just, because it went off like, you got your feet firmly on the planet. It just had much more of a soothing vibe, and which feels appropriate for the song. And unfortunately, I didn't have this guitar when I recorded. I recorded on my Mitchell, and I did a microphone in the front towards the 12th fret, and then also did a direct line out, and I gave it to the mixer, and he decided what he wanted to do with the guitars. So with the bass guitar, I kind of wanted just a very subtle groove to it to kind of move the music along, because basically the arrangement is just acoustic guitar and drums, and I felt the bass was just a little bit of an element that would kind of lift the song up. And it's just something real simple, like I have the C and a slide up to the octave, to F, to G. And it's just just enough to kind of lift up the mood.
You got your feet firmly on the planets, but your mind is always lost in its orbit. Your life is always consumed with your fantasies. You've got no time to spend on reality. Hey, this is spaceman. How is life on Mars?
Okay, so let's take a look at the arrangement here. I got well over 20 some tracks going here. Basically, I've got the drums, the easy drummer again. I'm only using in one track because I didn't actually, at the time when I recorded this, I didn't know how to divide up the tracks. I do now. I've got an atmosphere pad, which is kind of a soft pad. I got a fast beat, which is kind of this rhythmic kind of synth going on. I got this tiny fuzz, which is kind of a synth lead, which I use later on in the arrangement. I got the bass guitar. Got different sound bites. I got a couple of different acoustic guitars that I recorded. I don't think the mixer used all of them. But also, I had a couple, I call the space guitar, which is just played the chords straight, and then but it had a very cool delay effect, so it goes bling ding. Then I got a vibe guitar during the chorus, which was basically a vibrato, tremolo guitar. And for the guitar solo, I actually had two guitars. I had one main guitar solo and one that would kind of accent different points in the guitar solo, so I didn't play it all the time. It kind of just basically certain points that kind of amplify what was being played. Also with the vocals, because the last one I only did two vocals. One that was basically echoing with the lead during the chorus. This time I decided to do harmonies, and I got several different harmonies going on. And basically what I did this time around, and I learned this from Mike Nelson, working with him on the track for Sarah's Smile, is that he had my friend Tom Hips come and sing in the background, and what he did is each harmony he would actually do 2 takes and layer the vocals that way. So I did the same thing. I basically got the lead vocal, and then I'll have what I call the chorus layer, which is the exact same thing repeated, but in the mixing process would be pan hard right, hard left. And basically I got a high harmony, a low harmony, and other background vocals to kind of broaden the sound a lot more. And so there's a lot more harmonies going on. And also with the nice thing working with Logic Pro versus working on a digital 8-track is I actually had the ability to line up the vocals. And so I would do, and I didn't do them all perfectly, There's a couple that you can see on the screen that are slightly off, but I basically I would do is line up the real important parts so it would sound more uniform than if I just did, because by itself it kind of sounded kind of sloppy because one harmony would come in, like a few seconds before another harmony, because basically I would create the harmonies after I record the main vocals, and I would create these harmonies. I would try to figure them out. So I would sit there and practice and practice and practice, and sometimes I would get it where the pitch correctly, but then I would miss it in timing. So I could actually, once I finished, I'd fix the timing. Okay, so after I finished working on the vocals with the editing and making sure all of them were kind of synced up, then I worked on the bass guitar. Because working with Mike was a kind of a stretching experience for me, because I had been such an independent musician, and I wasn't paying attention to the perfection like I should have been. I do my bass lines, and I actually was a decent bass player because I had played bass for different churches, for different groups at different times, and so I had a decent understanding for groove, and so I knew that, but I wasn't always perfect in my timing. And so what I had to do is learn how to edit my bass guitar to make sure that I was in sync with the kick drum, that I was in sync with the drums, and even if I would have do little grooves or little lines here and there, that I would have to edit them to make sure they were in sync with the rest of the music. So that was kind of a learning experience for me. It kind of stretched me and took me from being that in the basement type of home recordist to the next level, to being professional. Okay, so another cool thing that I added to this arrangement was an outro. Actually, I had the outro initially, basically after the second round of choruses, I was just gonna do guitar solo outro. And when my friend Shane Hawkinson mixed the original rendition of this version, he added some effect that kind of created this sound that was similar to somebody singing ooh. It was a very subtle effect, and I asked him what it was. I originally thought it was him, just recorded him oohing to make it sound more interesting, and it wasn't. He actually added some effect to liven up the sound, and so I kind of liked that. So when I did the final version of this rendition, I decided to add that. So I went and I recorded my voice. I recorded I think it was up to 4 or 5 different harmonies that would accompany the guitar solo. And then I finally, on top of that, I threw the chorus again one more time, but this time I kind of spoke it, or I sang it slightly different, and I asked the Mike Nelson to add an effect to make it sound like I was talking through a megaphone. And the outcome was just so cool. I was so happy with it because it was so different. It was basically kind of like what David Bowie probably would have done or has done that I didn't know about. So I was very happy with that.
Nice to be in orbit.
You've got your feet firmly on the planet, but your mind is always lost in orbit. Comets and meteors are clashing with your reality. You have chosen to live a life full of fantasy. I'm sending a message on emergency channels, but my signal is blocked by your holodeck panels. You are now approaching the speed of light, warping into darkness, but slowly losing the fight. Hey, Mr. Spaceman, how is life on Mars? You forgot your walk track, tennis shoes.
3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff.
Okay, so again, I hope this has been helpful for you. Like I said in my previous video, these are not meant to be instructional videos, but more inspirational. I hope as I open up my workflow and even my struggles, that you can find inspiration from them. You can take a look at your projects and what you're going through in a completely different light and see that it is possible. It is possible to get these things done with like low budget. It is possible to get done with inferior equipment. You know, it's really about the talent that you have and the discipline. Because the thing is that today's day, we are distracted by so many things. We're distracted by Netflix or Google or you know, YouTube. There's so many things that can pull us away from what we want to do. And so now it boils down not that necessarily having the right tools, but now it's a time of discipline. Can you discipline yourself to do this? And you can. You can totally do this. If you do need instructions, I do have a couple of recommendations. If you want to learn how to mix better, if you want to learn how to record better or get different types of sounds, two people I recommend. First off, Graham Cochrane from recordingrevolution.com. Graham has been super helpful for me as I've been going back to Lonely Planet, and he has tons of videos that teach you how to proper things, from proper gain staging, proper EQ techniques, compression, all these different ways of mixing to make yourself better. He's helped me so much, even in the music arrangement. Like learning from him has helped me a lot. Another person I highly recommend, Warren Huart from Produce Like a Pro. He is a guy who's got a plethora of information, and he's been in the business for years. And he's just got, in fact, the other day he had one of the guys that produced Everlong, or the Foo Fighters' first album, and they went through, kind of broke down how different things went together and how they record things. It was amazing. So he's definitely a really good source of information and very helpful. Again, that's Produced Like a Pro. So anyways, if you like what I'm doing, please like it, subscribe, hit the bell notification, write to me, let me know what you think of this. Like I said, I'm not trying to sell any kind of service or anything. I just want to get my journey out to you, and hoping that somebody out there will find inspiration, and that this would help them to go to the next level in the creating of art. So until next time, make the world a better place by using your imagination. Thank you. God bless.
Hey, Mr. Spaceman,